guys, welcome back. As I mentioned on my last vlog, 1981 was a bit of a milestone for the Welsh team and for me individually. As I say, we had a fantastic championships. The first, we thought, of many, and in fact it was a little bit of a triumphant Welsh squad when we did arrive back to Wales in 1981. And as I said, plans were already in motion for the Newry Canal at Northern Ireland, the following year. Perhaps we could challenge England, perhaps we could challenge France, Italy and Belgium, for the honours, we thought. So we thought, how far from the truth? After successful practicing on the stretch on the Newry Canal near Dublin, we were pretty confident that, that we could probably do well, because we also had a home nations on there, and we done reasonably well. As far as the Welsh team was concerned, as I say, 1982 was a big learning curve, especially after a successful inauguration the year before on the Warwickshire Raven. Now, this event will probably go down in history as a non-event as far as the Welsh team was concerned at that time, realising that the team had a long way to go before we could really compete at the top with the top teams. I assumed it all started to go wrong really when I was sharing a room with a new team member, John Phillips from South Wales. He was from Caerphilly and he was a Cardiff Nomad member. Of course, there were quite a few people wanted to join the Welsh team at that time. And anyway, John Phillips was one of those anglers. He was a fair angler, but I suppose now, it'll go down as a little bit of history, because during our practice, the team caught well, fishing a long pole, catching skimmers, However, in the evening, as we were prepared, and we started to talk, and we thought about our methods. We thought, well, if we're going to compete, we will have to fish the pole. That's what we thought. Anyway, now I shared the room with John, and John, suppose he, in a way, talked me round, but he said he's going to leave his reels in the room, in the hotel room, and not take them with him, because he didn't want to be drawn, to fishing a rod and reel. He wanted to basically concentrate on the pole. Yeah, so anyway, we were talking about it, and I suppose he persuaded me, saying that if we start to digress methods, it's a short match, 3 hours. We really need to concentrate if we're going to fish. And as I said, because we'd been fishing well with the pole, we'd all been bagging. We were watching a guy named Sean Foy at the time. He taught us, and it was a pretty good method. It was basically catching skimmers on the drop, in quite deep water at about 13 meters. So that was it. John and I decided, right, let's leave the reels in the room. You guess what's going to come up? Well, anyway, I bombed out. Didn't even make the top 10 in my section. I think that's the first time, during my history. But anyway, in fact, the whole team didn't make the top 10, which was a disaster, really. As far as I was concerned, I thought, oh, what a big lesson we all learned that day, and that was not to leave anything out and fish to our strengths. As I said, and that premonition in the future, well, more about that later on in the vlogs. Yeah, because basically what happened, the usual thing we learned very early then, that by bombing in, balls of ground bait, the fish are going to go out further than the pole. And the fact the guy next to John came second in the match using a rod and reel. So you guessed, we tactically made a big cock up. excuse the language, but it was a big lesson to learn. Yeah, it was a real eye-opener, because I got talking to the guy who did come second, and he fished the waggler out, sort of 20 metres, and I asked him what did he use for bait, thinking must he use maggots. He said no, use the bloodworm, the bloodworm on the waggler, and also a slightly sliding as well, which is something that with a bug down the waggler, which was in them days a little bit of an innovation. But the other surprising thing he did tell me, that he fished a size 12 hook. I said, how can you fish a 12 hook on bloodworm? Well, what he did, he put bunches of it, bunches of bloodworm, up to like 20 on the size 12. And I asked him what diameter line, and he's using something ridiculous like diameter 8. And I thought, oh my God. So it was a big lesson. We learned a lot. Then on the individual day, the second day, I did watch the events unfold, and for various reasons I thought this is good for the future and my future international duties, because not experiencing or even watch the World Championships, I thought, well, this will be the opportunity to learn a bit more about it, certainly if I was going to go ahead and challenge at a later date. Anyway, one thing I can say is to understand the preparation and the course of events that all the top teams went through, was phenomenal. For example, I know we don't do this, but I've seen the Italian teams gut a couple of fish they caught just to see what they were eating. Now, we never went to that extreme. I mean, obviously, but some of the top teams, they went through everything. Now, it has been said, especially the younger generation, that World Championships weren't as good today then as it is today. Well, I can categorically tell you that I believe that the World Championship top teams were the best in the generation during the 80s. France, Belgium, Italy. I mean, England were just tapping the door then to compete with them. But as I said, they were so far advanced of all the other teams that it was a real eye-opener just to watch this event, on the second day. Yeah, just I was just thinking then, because there were a couple of teams, Spain, Portugal, Hungary, that were perhaps behind on the tackle department, but seriously, the top teams were just unbeatable. When you consider the French individually, and also Italy and the Belgians, and the Dutch, they were constantly in the frame for many years. Anyway, perhaps it's sour grapes by the younger anglers, because for many years they didn't do any good at all in the international circuit, but I'll be talking about that a little bit later. Yeah, so watching the individual match was very interesting, as far as the spectators were concerned, because the fishing was very poor. I didn't realise how hard it could be, and remembering that 3 hours is a very short time, and you have to get it dead right from start to finish. Perhaps it was the bombardment of the ground bait that went in. The canal was only about 12 foot deep, but the Newry Canal just didn't respond, to anything. Those small skimmers, they just disappeared. Especially the second day. So anyway, I decided to sit behind and watch my friend then, Kevin Ashurst. Now, he drew in the middle of the section of the match. Now, all I can say is concentration and changing methods was exhilarating, and to watch. And using what looked like a peacock pole float with a little bristle on the top, he was lifting a few inches above the water level and dropping. And he'd done this constantly throughout the match, using a single bloodworm, and I think they were using jokers at the time. But anyway, moving it very slowly, and it worked extremely well for him. And Kevin showed the world why he was number one. You know, he basically won the match. It was a privilege, you know, and I was really heartwarming to see him win it, because if he wasn't going to be a Welsh guy, you know, then obviously, you know, he was the best England guy. And anyway, winning the World Championships on the very hard Newry Canal, and lifting and dropping that float continuously through the match, catching only 0.82 kilos of small skimmers. Yes, and then, as I said, he became the world champion, and what a popular champion he was. You know, I've never seen anglers, you know, especially if you like spectators, hold aloft an angler before. No, Kevin's a big chap, and they actually held him on their shoulders as you know, when he was announced the winner. It was fabulous, you know, to watch him. And as I said, as far as the Welsh team was concerned, it was a lesson learned. You know, we had to get the ground bait right, we had to get our tactics right, and we had to be a bit more versatile, I think, you know, and trying to copy the continental anglers at their own methods on the pole was going to be, you know, really hard, and something that obviously we either had to follow them, or we had to wait until the venue suited our methods, which basically is the rod and reel and wagglers and so on. Anyway, I'm going to show you a photograph of Kevin. He's on top of the world, and I'll show you the results as well. Yeah, so in the final results, Kevin, as I said, winning the individual was fantastic, but the Dutch at the time, they were the top of the tree. They won it. They had 20 points. France was second, and England were third. You know, as I said, just knocking on the door. Yeah, it was a big lesson to learn. On that day as well, the individual day, there was a guy originally from London way, a Mick Thill, who I think fished for Exeter, Brown and Exeter, and he was fishing under the American banner flag, and he came second. Again, you know, I remember watching him using long pole. That was before the 30-meter restriction. I think he was fishing 16 or 17 meters, and fair dues to him. You know, he came second to Kevin, and then there was Bartolis from Belgium. He came third, again using the long pole and blood room tactics, but very low weights. You know, I think Mick Thill had 680, and I think Bartolis had 580 grams. You know, so you know, what's that? That's pound odd, you know, pound odd of fish. But anyway, it was an eye-opener. It could only happen in Ireland, of course, low weights like this. You know, everyone is expecting huge bonanza weights. I mean, prior to that, on the River Bann, I've had a couple of big, massive weights of 140 odd pound, 130 pound, you know, on the pole to hand. But that in a later vlog. So that was it, you know. Yeah, so anyway, you know, as I said, it was a big eye-opener, and anyway, hope you enjoyed it. It's only a short vlog, this one, but as I said, my boyhood hero, Kevin Ashurst, winning it was fantastic. We all looked up to him, you know, as I said, even all the other members of the England team and us, and I said, I was fortunate that I got very friendly with Kevin, and I hoped that it would continue during the 1980s, which it did. But more about the 1980s and the festivals in the next vlog. Tell you a little bit more about what was happening then. Okay, see you next time.